Welcome to Grateful Life. I'm your host, Ashley Eicher. And on today's show, we'll be talking about walking for health and life balance with Kathy Smith. Kathy is a New York Times best-selling author, fitness icon, and pioneer who changed the landscape of exercise as she grew into a household name in the 80s. From her classes on yoga, Pilates, kickboxing, walking, and even belly dancing, Kathy has stood at the forefront of the fitness and wellness industries for more than 40 years. Forbes calls her a fitness titan, and for good reason. She has been featured in countless fitness programs and shared life-changing tips from her book, Moving Through Menopause, on The Oprah Winfrey Show. If you are looking for tips on how to get your fitness plan in place, make sure you check out her Reshape app. As a lifelong advocate of balanced well-being, Kathy believes that age is a mindset in which being your best has no limits. Today, we'll discuss how walking creates life balance, and we want to hear from you. Submit your questions at any time using the chat in the streaming window. We will answer your questions towards the end of the webcast. Kathy, it is so great to sit down with you today and talk about walking and all of its benefits for any stage of our life. You have had a really busy week this week.
I have, Ashley. I'm delighted to be here, but yes, you're right. I'm in Park City right now. It's snowing. This week was Sundance, and for people that don't know about Sundance, it's a movie festival, and it happens in Park City, and the whole universe comes, it seems like, and to watch movies. And I had a lot of my girlfriends come in. It's a big social week for us. So this now is a recovery weekend. So after, I'm kind of one of these people, I pace myself. I can go, and then I have to do a little bit more rest.
Well, and you've been incredibly influential in helping so many people get fit. But for anyone who doesn't know, how did you get your start?
Well, it's kind of interesting because it's not what probably most people think. It wasn't about losing weight or any of those things. I was raised in the military. We traveled around the world. And when we were in Belleville, Illinois, and I was 17 years old, my dad died of a heart attack. And then literally 2.5 years later, my mom and my stepdad died in a plane crash. So by the time I was 21 years old, I was orphaned. And it was a traumatic time for me. I went through anxiety, depression, not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. I happened to be at the University of Hawaii at the time, and my boyfriend, who was a football player, would go to the track, and I would accompany him to the track, not because I was an athlete. I had not done any sports before that, but I just did not want to be alone. And so I did one lap and then another lap, and I started linking them together. And pretty soon I'd come back from these walks, runs, and I would notice that my mindset, the depression, the anxiety, the heaviness was lifting. And I thought, my gosh, there's something to this. It completely changed and saved my life. So that was the beginning. And then I eventually ran a marathon in 1975. And I have to say, it was kind of exciting. There were 800 men and 12 women. So it wasn't something that was being done at that point. But I knew there was something to this aerobic fitness. And I started studying with, people around the United States, doctors who were starting to do studies on aerobic fitness. So then I moved to LA. There was one class there, and it just so happens that it was in Century City, and it was called Gilda, Body Design by Gilda. And I would go to the class, and on this side was Jane Fonda, this side Barbara Streisand, and we were doing all these arm circle things like this. And I loved the class, I loved the music, I loved the format, but there really wasn't much aerobics. So that's when I had the idea of combining this class format with more aerobic exercise, and that kind of launched my career.
Well, and so many people know you for those fitness workouts that you did, but when did walking become such a focus for you, and how did your audience respond to it?
Well, to your point, I started with these videos that turned into DVDs, But then I honestly was shooting my pregnancy workout, which actually I was pregnant with my first daughter, Kate. And I noticed after about 4 or 5 months, anything high impact, anything that was jarring to my body no longer felt comfortable. So I would be going out and I discovered that walking was so comfortable on my body. But here's the thing, Ashley. There was kind of this misconception that I had, and many people have, that walking really isn't a workout. It's just something that you do if you can't do other things. And that was a fallacy. I started walking. I started, again, researching and found this woman in Boston, Ellen Abbott, who was doing and training people on proper walking techniques so that you could get the most out of your workouts. So I would go for these walks. I would come back and I noticed my shape, my body changing, my legs, tightening and toning, my booty lifting. So all this stuff was happening, and I was feeling like $1,000,000. So that's where I started, getting hooked on walking, and then developed a program called Walk Fit, and
Right.
yeah, it became an infomercial.
Well, and from there, it just expanded to so many different things for you, including a deal with Reebok, which is incredible.
Yeah, again, it was they had Reebok had a walking shoe, and they wanted a walking audio, and I did their TV commercials and print ads for walking, and then get the Walk Fit program though exploded. So when you say how did my audience like it, I mean, not only like, they loved it, and the responses and the feedback coming back from my um, followers, my friends, whatever, was that when you would go out for a walk, and again, with these audio tapes, I would be cueing you through proper techniques, proper posture, and also keeping you on the beat so that you're going a little bit, your cadence might be a little faster at times. It really changed their perspective on what walking can do.
Well, you really started this about 36 years ago, but will you talk to us a little bit more about the WalkFit app that you created and how impactful that was?
I just remember when I launched Walk Fit, and it was launched on an infomercial, and it was getting tremendous the tremendous viewership, tremendous feedback. And what I realized is that people like having they like having a coach in your ear, somebody that can motivate you to get up, get out, do your walk, stay on, and stay with it for maybe 30 minutes. So my thing was I also like to take people where they're at, meaning whatever stage of fitness you're at. I like to meet you where you're at. So if you haven't been walking, then it's really just building up your endurance, building up and starting slowly, really with 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, and just adding a few minutes a day until maybe you hit that 20 or 30-minute mark. But it was always about keeping people safe, getting them having fun with it. As I would say, let's put some, I'd get them, okay, let's put some pride in your stride, or let's take a walk on the wild side. And I love, playing songs about walking. These boots are made for walking, or there's a Bruce Springsteen song about walking. So it was always about injecting that, some humor, some lightness of being, at the same time, making sure people get what they want, which is typically to get the most out of their walk.
Well, and I love that you talk about, people just getting out the door. So could you talk just about, are there any things that we need to do if I decide now I want to start walking 6 miles a day? Is there anything I can do to kind of really start doing that? Like, is there something I need to do before I start walking that amount?
Well, first of all, did I hear you correctly? Did you say 6 miles a day?
Well, Kathy, I thought I would just, start with nothing and go to 6 miles a day.
I think that's your first mistake, Ashley. No, but if you haven't been walking at all, Don't follow Ashley. Do not walk 6 miles tomorrow. Because there's nothing that I can tell you now that's going to help you with your feet and everything after that. No, and I know you. I'm playing with you, but to answer your question, yes. So there are a lot of things that I like people to do before they walk out the door. One is start to work on ankle mobility and stretching out your calves, no matter what kind of shoe you wear. If it has any sort of, elevation whatsoever, it doesn't have to be a stiletto, but if you have any sort of elevation, and if you've been wearing shoes throughout your life, then what happens typically, and we see this in most women, is that your calf muscles start to tighten and start to shrink. What happens is that you will not be able to have a full stride when you go out walking. So a simple thing to adjust or to do before you go out is grab a towel, wrap it up so it's not very high like this, hold on to a chair, and then put your toes and the ball of your foot on the towel. Let your heels drop down to the floor and just let those calf muscles stretch. Also, it has to do with that ankle mobility. And if you want, do a few calf raises, just up and down to get some mobility through that part of the body. Another stretch, grab onto the back of your chair. And now scoot your buttocks back, lean forward. Your butt should be over your feet, and then lean forward like in an L shape and with your knees slightly bent, and just stretch out the back of your legs, your hamstrings and your hips. And those simple exercises will make your walks more comfortable. And then the last thing, whenever I go out, I love to get some shoulder rotation going. Think about a backstroke, with the long arm or with the bent arm, backstroke. And then do something where I call them goalpost arms. But imagine you're pinching a pencil between your shoulder blades. So bring those shoulder blades down and back, chest is up. And those few little things with a little bit of neck rotation will loosen up your upper body and help you have better posture. Remember, everything's connected. So if something's tight in your body, you're going to feel it in your walk. And when you want to loosen those things up.
Well, what if I'm ready to pick up the pace a little bit? What do you recommend if I'm really starting to get going?
So one of the things that, to think about with walking is that the speed of your legs is determined by the speed of your arms. That's why when people jog, you never see people jogging with their arms down. There's always a slight bend in the elbow. Now, it's not an exaggerated, it doesn't have to be like this. I was kind of going up there because of the camera view, but just kind of the chest level and back. But it's a little pumping action that happens with your arms, which then allows your legs to go a little faster. And you combine that with, once again, posture. So imagine somebody has a string and they're pulling up the top of the head, which gives you a cue to engage your core. So lifting, getting the shoulders back, and keeping your eyes not down, because when you go down, when you're staring down at the ground, what happens is that it doesn't allow you to take a full breath. So you want to stare out. You want to be safe. You want to be able to see things, but it's like about 20 feet in front of you, and that allows you to, open up the chest, get that full range of motion with the arms, and then pick up the pace. And even if you do it for 30 seconds, like let's say there's a stop sign up the road, and you're walking with a friend, you might, just, okay, let's hightail it to the stop sign. And so it's just heel toe push, which let me explain that one. So heel toe push, imagine you plant your heel, you roll through the toe and you push off. Heel, toe, push, heel, toe. And when you're pushing, whatever leg is pushing, you're squeezing that glute. The glute, once again, is your backside, your butt. And so now it's that, and you don't want to think about bobbing. It's not like we're going up and down. You want to think about kind of a straight line forward. And those kind of techniques like that can really help you pick up the pace, as you said.
Well, and I love that you talked about just the use of your arms and really getting going, because as you build a little bit on a little bit more, it really starts to become a workout. So, what are some of the benefits that people can take away from walking? How will it help their body, them mentally? What do you feel like those are?
Oh my gosh, the benefits, the list, we could be here all day talking about the list, but let me start with obviously there's weight loss, weight maintenance, but more importantly, it's improving blood cholesterol profile. There's lowering blood pressure. There is improving balance and agility. There is all those amazing endorphins that flood your brain, which improve your mood. There's stress reduction. There's socialization aspects to it. But really, the thing is, Ashley, when it comes to exercise, we're just finding out more and more every single year of how important exercise is to every single cell in your body. So, your mitochondria, which, if you remember from biology classes, those are the energy um, powerhouses of your cells. Exercise impacts them all. And that increased circulation going to your brain helps not only with making you feel more alert, but also helps with memory, with improving focus, with helping you, stay on task. So there are a lot of subtle benefits and then profound benefits, but all of them add up to really being what I think of as one of the most perfect forms of exercise. And I also call it the no excuse exercise, because all you need is a pair of shoes. You walk out the door, or you get on the treadmill, or even if you're in your room. I mean, I get up sometimes in the morning and I don't have much time, but I'll do a 5 minute, 5 to 10 minute walk in place with a couple, might be some arm variations, but literally walking in place in your room can start can start that flood of all these great benefits that happen in your body.
Well, and I think just those types of benefits, I know for me, and I know we joked about the 6 miles and starting off there, but even just getting out and there's a park nearby that I love, and even just doing 30 minutes around that park, the way I feel sometimes at the beginning when I start off of just being, let's say I'm a little frustrated that day, by the time I'm done, the mental and emotional benefits, not only in addition to getting a great workout, is part of what I love about it so much. So I love that you talk about there's so many benefits, like the list just goes on and on. But one of the things you also talk about is this idea of health span. And so for anybody who doesn't know what that is, can you explain that a little bit? And then how does that help with longevity?
So when we think about longevity, we typically think about lifespan, our chronological age. And there isn't as much emphasis placed on health span, which is that time of life where you feel vital and energized, and you feel like you're in your prime, that you feel really good, that you're not burdened by a lot of diseases. And health span, we're focusing more and more on, because you can control through lifestyle, through proper eating, through regular movement like walking. And I want to emphasize, more and more studies are showing that the improvement in health span, which once again is that time when you feel alive and vital, it cannot be underestimated, and it cannot be ignored. It's just, and the great thing about it, Ashley, never too late to start. You can start at any age and start reaping the benefits of a walking program, of a fitness program, of an exercise program. So health span is really important, and I think that the more and more, we have books and doctors talking about, yeah, we are all going to die at one point, obviously, but what we have control over is those years and decades prior to that, of how are those remaining years. I think about myself and my age, and what do I want for the next 20 years of my life. And for what I love is I love playing with my grandkids. I love being outdoors. I love being active. I love learning. I'm so curious about everything. And I love trying new things. And setting up some sort of ritual where you just make walking a way of life. I call it a non-negotiable. I mean, you don't get up and ask yourself, am I going to brush my teeth or not? Should I brush today or not? It's just dumb. Yeah, you just do it. Well, the same thing is with movement. Your body is meant to move, and all the body parts, which I actually, when we were going through the list before, did not mention, like joints and range of motion and even pain. All of these things can be improved or minimized with a simple walking routine.
Well, and I love that you talked about this idea of like making the list of why we want to do this and longevity and what do we want to be around for. And I know we talked about this briefly on a call a week ago, but one of the things for me in talking to my parents and trying to get them to start a walking program to be more active is that my nephew is 15 months old. And so for both of my parents, part of that's becoming a motivator for them to be able to pick him up for as long as they possibly can. And so that's kind of what trying to get them to get moving in the same way. And what I keep telling them is if we just start small, like let's just start and do the next step, the next step, the next step. So my question for you is like, what are recommendations that you have for people that are thinking, is it too late? Like, what if I haven't started? Like, what do you say to that?
Never, ever, ever too late. And you have to be, be sensible and be safe. But if you have someone you can walk with, or even if you're going out by yourself, I mean, the main thing I would check out is the terrain. Make sure that it's level. Make sure that you aren't wearing um, ear pods or things
Earbuds.
that
Mhm.
might distract from your focus, and just just staying in the moment and looking around. I mean, one of the things I talk about is I love awe walks, AWE, where you go out and you just take in your surroundings, the sights, the smells, the sounds, and you just luxuriate in that process. And you don't think about maybe the time. I mean, sometimes you might go out and say, I'm going to walk until I see 6 dogs or 10 dogs. And as soon as I see 10 dogs, I'm going to turn around and then maybe up the number of dogs you get to see as weeks go on. I try to get people out of really thinking too much when they're first starting out about how much time, how fast I should be going, because we don't want to turn your stroll into like a slog. This should be joyful. This should feel fun. This should feel like something like, I cannot wait, which is what I feel. I can't wait to get out and go for my walk. But I never think about how many calories I'm burning, or, you judge it by the day. Some days we're all going to have more energy. You go a little further. Some days you wake up, you didn't have a good night's sleep. You might have overeaten the day before. Maybe you got some bad news about something and you're just not feeling it. But to your point, Ashley, and you said this earlier, no matter how you feel, I can't emphasize enough, lace up the shoes and get outside, because 5 minutes later into that walk, I promise you, you will be feeling better. And then that's when you determine, how far. And again, just keep adding a few minutes, just a few minutes a day. And pretty soon you're up to that, 20, 30, 40, whatever's right for your body, for how you're feeling that day.
Well, and one of the things that I thought of while you were talking is I think about my neighbor Martha, who is in her later 70s, and she walks every single morning with a couple of girlfriends. And one, for safety, to your point, and two, to keep it social. I know you walk with girlfriends too. So can you talk about like how do you stay motivated and want to keep going, or what are some recommendations that you have for people?
Well, I have different types of walks, and one is the walk and talk. And you think about walking the same way you would think of any other social activity. let's get out. I don't want to call it gossip, but let's share stories. The same way you would if you were sitting and having, whether it's a cocktail or dinner or lunch, same way, but just get out and do it outdoors. And everybody, it starts once the endorphins start releasing, everybody gets more animated, they're sharing more stories, you're laughing. So walk and talks. The other thing I call the struggle stroll. And the struggle stroll is if somebody's having a hard time with something, ask somebody to go for a walk and just share what the struggle is, what the struggle is that you're going through. Now, maybe say you're not looking for feedback, you're not looking for advice, you just want to share it. And just getting it off your chest can be dramatic. There's the all walking that I mentioned, which you can do that. You can find new parks or new areas wherever you live, a new area where you can go on like a micro discovery walk where you're going to see new things. I always love doing this when I go into new neighborhoods. You see new houses, new shapes. The flowers are blooming. The trees are in season or not. And, there's more bird watching and dog watching, and all that stuff really keeps you engaged in how amazing life is. And that's what awe is all about. I mean, awe is like, instead of like worrying and think about everything that's wrong, it's like having that moment where you feel inspired just by the simple act of reaching down and petting a dog with an amazing coat of hair or smelling a flower that you really never took the time to smell before. And that's what I really appreciate with the different types of walks. And then some days you're going to get out and push it. And that's what the only thing I would recommend is that every once in a while, get out there and push with this HIIT training you mentioned, where it's high intensity interval training, or where you just go for that 30-second burst where you're just going heel toe push until you get to that stop sign. And then you recover for 2 minutes with a slow walk. And then you do it again. You do that once a week, and you're going to see your walks are going to start improving week in and week out.
Well, and I know there are so many people in our audience that love setting goals for themselves or wanting to mix it up a little bit. So what do you recommend for them in terms of goal setting or just changing things up?
So say that again in terms of goal setting, or what was the last thing? I didn't hear the last thing.
What are some goals, like for people that are watching, like, gosh, I love setting a goal. Like, what are some ways that they can do that as they start to implement walking into their everyday life and as a workout eventually? And then let's say they want to mix it up. What are some things that you recommend?
Well, I would recommend, if you're just starting out, you start out with what we call steady state. And steady state is just even, steady, pace. And the way that I love for people to do this, and that is, get somebody who has a car and mark off a mile. Or if you live near a track, or you live near a park, or you live somewhere where they have designated markers, then find out what a mile is. And when you know what a mile is, just go out with your steady state walk and see what your pace is. Do you do that in 30 minutes? Do you do it in 20 minutes? There's a lot of studies that show if you can walk at a 2.5 miles per hour, which is about 25 minutes for a mile, then your longevity is increased by 10 years. So the idea is, we want to get you out walking. We also want to, depending on your age and your physical capabilities, we want to get you to a point where you can increase your speed a little bit. And with that, I would just start with mainly steady state. So 80%, 90% of what you're going to be doing is this steady state. And maybe you lengthen the amount of time you're out during your steady state. So let's say 15 minutes becomes comfortable for you. then, eventually, and none of this should be done rapidly, by the way. Our bodies are miracles. It's remarkable how they adapt, but it takes time, not just for our muscles, but for our lungs, for our ligaments, for our joints. And so you don't want to rush it. But if you've been walking for a while and you've gone for 15 minutes, then the next month try 20 minutes, and then keep it to 20 for a month, and then the next month after that 25 minutes, and just get to a place where it's a good distance for you, and maybe work up to that 30 minutes. Now when it comes to the couple of days, or at least one day a week where you're going to be pushing it, with this interval training, find as I said, I usually just use markers on the street. We're trying to get you to push it for about 30 seconds. So anything you can find, or I don't really like walking with a Apple Watch or anything like that. I don't use that, but I kind of know where 30 seconds is. Now, we want you to get to a place where you're not completely out of breath, but it's starting to feel like you're not going to be carrying on a conversation right now. So your steady state is talking to a friend, we're doing our, back and forth, no problem. For that 30 seconds that you're going to pick it up, you're probably going to stop talking, and you're probably going to be really excited when you hit that stop sign. And when you do, that's going to feel great. And now you just recover. And pretty soon and this is the remarkable thing. You do that for a month, you do that for 2 months, all of a sudden that pace that was hard for you a month or 2 months ago to get to that stop sign now feels easier. And that's an adaptation that happens when we train our bodies. So training is, you don't have to be an elite athlete. None of us are elite athletes, but all the principles that work for all these other, for athletes are the same principles that work for all of us. You have to get out, push yourself a little bit at times, not too much, and then your body will adapt to that and you'll improve.
Well, and I love that you said that. Kathy, I've got a couple more questions for you personally, but what I want to do is let our audience know that we want to hear from you. So if you guys are sitting there and watching and you've got questions for Kathy, we want to answer your questions. So you can go to the chat in the stream and ask questions, and we might just ask them on air here in a couple of minutes and get those answered for you. But before we get to that, I want to give you guys a little time to do that. Kathy, when we think about building out community and how that can be a benefit to walking and bringing in an exercise program into your daily life, can you talk just about how to widen that community and what that looks like?
Yeah, the social aspects of walking are tremendous. And, there's a saying, your vibe attracts your tribe. And so when you start spreading the word that you're wanting to go on more walks, you're going to notice people are going to start connecting, like, oh, I like walking too. Maybe we can connect this week. And that is, a starting place. And then, the idea that if you start training for something like even a 1K or any sort of fundraiser. I used to always love and still love fundraisers because they have all levels. They have the 1K, um, they have 5Ks, but they have a place where you can go, be around get around a lot of like-minded people and share your stories. Share your stories about what's working, what's not working. But within your community, I think the best thing is just to, you know, perhaps be the one that sets up a walking club. And it doesn't have to be real structured because sometimes people don't want to get involved with a real structured program. But let's just say Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, a group of you are going to meet up for a walk. And then if the group's large enough, not everybody's going to show up every single day or 3 days a week, but you're going to have a base of people. And pretty soon, the word starts spreading organically. Like people will start noticing or hearing or seeing you out there having so much fun, and they're going to want to join along. So it's starting
No,
the
so
process.
true.
And if you can't get outside, just remember you can also, as I said before, walk indoors and build some strength while you're getting the confidence or building the strength to get outdoors.
Absolutely. Okay, we've got a couple of questions from our audience. Kathy, are you ready for these?
I certainly am, Ashley. Can't wait.
Okay, great. So, one of the questions is if I'm in my 60s, is it too late to start a life shift with walking? And what about limited motion?
Um, no, it's not too late. And did I hear 50s or 60s?
60s.
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 Okay. No, first of all, it's never too late. But I wanted to make sure it's never too late to start walking. I don't know where your limitations are with your walking or with your body. So I'm not sure if it has something to do with ankles, hips, what part of your body that is limited range of motion. But some of the things we talked about earlier in the show will help. And those are the things that everybody should start whether they want to start a walking program now or not. And that is, how do we pick up um, get increase circulation, get the shoulders moving, get the neck moving, get the ankles, get the calves, get the hips. And we're not really covering it on this show, but I know Ashley mentioned it, and I have a lot of videos, et cetera, that can help deal with um, range of motion and limited mobility. But I would say that obviously everybody's always has to check with their doctor and make sure you're doing something that's safe for your body. But no, to answer your question, it's never too late. And as a matter of fact, right now would be the ideal time to start. You have a lot of life in front of you and a lot of positive years in this journey on the planet. And you can make it even brighter if you start a simple exercise program like walking.
Kathy, I love that you just said just that encouragement of like what we want this program to be is encouraging and empowering for you and taking those next little steps that you can take. So I love seeing these questions, but I also love how you just answered that question the way that you did. The next one we have is how important are the right shoes if you start a walking program?
Extremely important. So we all have, and then people ask me, they go, "What's the best shoe?" And I said, it really depends on the shape of your foot. Some of us have wider feet. Some of us have high arches, myself, or flat feet. And all of these things impact what type of shoe would be best for you. But definitely having a lot of support, and what we sometimes ignore, and it's a big thing for me, socks. Get some good socks that have some padding in it, especially for me on the ball of my foot. That makes the whole thing much more comfortable. The way your foot fits into your shoe, and take that extra moment to get your shoes on and put them on right. Sometimes we're in a hurry and our socks are kind of folded over inside the shoe, or we tie our laces and we didn't really spend much time and they're really not tied properly. Or sometimes they're too tight, not at the end, but remember the lace goes all the way up your foot. So if they're too tight by your toes, it's going to decrease circulation. Biggest thing for me also, toe box. So I know we all want to have pretty, slim looking feet, but I gave that up years ago, because what you want to have is you want to have enough room in that shoe for your toes, and the front part of your foot to really have enough room so it's not being pinched. So those are kind of some tips from about shoes.
Well, and I think it is an individual thing. It's finding the right shoe that is best for your foot, because I know in my history, one time I bought a pair of shoes, a brand of shoes, just because I saw that a friend of mine wore them and loved them, and she was a runner, and I tried them and they were terrible for my feet. And I went back to the pair that I'd used before. And you have to find what works best for you, even if that's not what works best for everybody else. So I love that you said that. Okay, next question. Are there benefits to walking on a treadmill versus outside? And is there a better workout? Is one better than the other?
Good question. I like that you're asking me this, because I didn't mention this before, but I'm training for this crazy event. Well, first of all, backing up, another crazy event. I did the Camino Santiago, which is a 500-mile walk across Spain, and I learned a lot. And I did it in 30 days. And I learned a lot about if you have improper footwear, how bad that can be on your feet. But for training for that, what I found, I did both. I did treadmill and I did outdoor walking. Outdoor walking is great because it allows you to have your natural stride, which means on a treadmill, because the roller is going around, you don't necessarily have to push off. If I just on a treadmill, I can just pick up my foot and set it down. Now it's good, but I don't necessarily have to push off to propel myself forward. Having said that, I love treadmill workouts. And this is why. You know, there's just all the obvious reasons. You didn't get your workout in, it's cold out, it's rainy out, it's gloomy out. And so when I go to my treadmill workout, which I did this morning, I have different variations. If you give yourself just a little bit of an incline on the treadmill. So when you look at your treadmill, you're going to have 0% incline and then one, two, three, four, five, that sort of thing until it gets really steep. But even if you give yourself 2% incline, now you have to use that push off to keep you on the treadmill. So that's a little bit, but it's not too steep that it's going to stress your body too much. At the same time, the higher you make the incline, the slower you're going to go, which is absolutely fine because you're getting a comparable workout. So one workout that I do, I call it my 2468. And I get on a treadmill and I start at steady state for 4 to 6 minutes, which means 0% incline, then 2%, then for a minute, 4% for a minute, 6% for a minute, 8%, then drop it all the way back down. And then I call this workout double trouble because I do it twice. So you do the steady state once again, you recover, and then you go 2, 4, 6, 8. Now, for many of those viewers watching, eight's going to be too high, but you can do your variation. You can go 1, 2, 3, 4. And once again, just like all the other, everything we've talked about today works with this incline also. 1, 2, 3, 4 might feel even hard the first time, but pretty soon you're going to get really, and it's funny because I got back into doing these treadmill workouts again. It took me about 4 weeks to 6 weeks. And all of a sudden my body was just going to the higher elevations, no problem. So just remember when something feels tough the first time you do it, listen to your body, but also know that if you train it, it will eventually not feel tough.
Okay, I love it. This next question. I love that someone submitted this. Okay. Have you seen the hot girl walk trend on social media? And do you think walking is making a comeback? And what do you think about younger generations that are embracing walking for fitness?
I love the fact they are. I mean, it's music to my ears because as I said, in recent years we've gone you see the younger generation, everything is the harder it is, the more intense from the CrossFit, phenomenon to um, even some of the influencers that are sending out the message now that harder is better. Now, my thing is, and I think it's one of the reasons why every joint in my body feels good. I've never really had, knock on wood, major injury. Um, but it was always because I cross trained, I did multiple things, and I always had um, a place where I could go where I was getting a workout, but I wasn't pounding my body all the time. And when you pound your body and you're young, I see it in men, I see it in women. Then by the time they're in their mid 30s, they're suffering from all kinds of issues, from lifting too heavy weights to doing too much pounding, and now their joints are hurting. So I really love that this is I love that this is kind of a new trend. It's fun to see.
Do you have an inspirational story for the people that have used your programs that maybe is one of your favorite stories?
I have so many favorites. So, because I've been doing this for so long, I mean, I've gotten everything from letters, people writing me letters, to people emailing, to people, Facebook and going on Instagram. So, through the years, lots and lots of stories, thousands of them. I think they're all the ones that are, weight related. I mean, there's a bunch that are weight related where people lose like 150 pounds, and it's changed their life. It's changed the way that they look at themselves, and it's changed what they think they can do with their life. So those are always empowering. But I think the ones that really touch me are the ones where, like Jennifer, who her mother was going through ovarian cancer, and she started walking because her mother was told that she needs to move her body. I mean, it changed basically both of their lives. But Jennifer, it pulled her out of a depression. I have another story about a woman who was suicidal. And just by starting a walking program, she completely shifted her mindset. And it became so powerful that her husband didn't even hardly recognize her anymore, because she went from, Debbie Downer to really a positive outlook. So those are powerful, walking groups, people raising hundreds of thousands of dollars through walking programs that they've been part of. People that have gone through breast cancer walks, that have written me letters that they started with, just kind of like we were talking about earlier. They just started. And then a year later, they're doing a breast cancer survival walk with a group of people, feeling like $1 million. So the stories go on, and each one is, I think, more powerful than the next. But I love the ones that connect people with other people and help people get rid of some of their anxiety, their fears, and really jump into what is good about life. So, and I like to see people light up. I'm a person that loves fun. I love laughing. I mean, I'm sort of a joy. I seek out joy. I love to give joy to people. I'm sort of a joyous person. And when I take people out for walks, I will tell you, by the end of that walk, everybody's kind of on a joy ride. So that's what's fun.
Kathy, this has been the most incredible time together, and we are just so grateful. And I know for anyone that's watching at home right now in our audience, like, you talk about these stories and how much they mean to you when people reach out to you and share how their lives are being changed, and that you're getting to use your gifts and talents in these ways to help other people. And so, from my perspective, I just feel like the more we can share our stories with each other, the better. And so if you are watching at home and you think, you know what, my brother, sister, cousin, mother, father, my best friend, like, they need to see this. I want them to hear from Kathy. Like, please share this program with them, and make sure you follow Kathy as well. But Kathy, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing so much incredible information with us and everyone at home.
It's been a pleasure. You're wonderful, and I love the name of your show, and it's inspiring, and you're inspiring. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Kathy. We have loved having you here. And you can learn more about Kathy and any of her walking or fitness programs at kathysmith.com. And for everyone who has attended today's webcast, you'll receive a link to the program and a special free link to a guided audio walk with Kathy. Join us on March 28th at 2 p.m. Central Time for our next webcast on the hidden costs of aging and how to prepare. Thank you so much for joining us on Grateful Life. We will see you soon.